Welcome back to the Skid Factory, where today we're going to fly Muzz into life. Since you left off last week, a little bit has happened. The inlet manifold and all the piping is off the car. That's because we've got to refit some O-rings onto the pipes and get them back on with those Golby's clamps. Michael Ramsey has sent us in these fab caps. He previously had a doozy with a boost rag and ruined a turbo, so he made up these caps. Fab Caps Australia, and he sent them to our PO box, so thanks to those, mate. Another thing that is new is some names on our hoists. So our top tiered Patreon supporters, as part of that tier you get your name within the Skid Factory to go down in Skid Factory history, and that's where they are. So thank you to all our Patreon supporters. If you want to be a Patreon supporter, check us out. You also get to see the videos ad-free 48 hours in advance, which is a bit of a bonus. There's lots of work to do. Hopefully we can get this thing fired up and back in the hands of Dave this episode, so fingers crossed, but let's get into it. What's going on with the wiring, Alan?
I'm just tidying it and moving lots of things around because the ignition coils are changed. They're a changed location. They're a different type of coil. We put an IGN 1A Haltech coils on it, which are like a friggin' lightsaber.
What'd you call them? A fire breather?
Could zap you, zap your ass. So yeah, they're in a different spot. Everything is different, like the turbo location, everything's all different, so we've moved lots of stuff around, so I'm just rerouting everything. It's got dual widebands instead of one now, which is a different wiring setup as well, so that's been added. We need to mount the coils so I can work out my lengths and stuff so we can actually wire them up, so that'll probably be the next job. Quick shout out to our mate Kai for hooking us up with aircon.
Yeah,
the shed is now air conditioned and
half air conditioned.
It's it works pretty good. It's about half as much as it needs to be, but it's still twice as good as not having it.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Thanks, mate. Let's go and mount some coils.
In true Binky fashion, Al makes up a couple of fancy brackets to secure the ignition coils to the firewall. The bare wiring loom is then laid out over the engine so that the lengths of the coil wiring and wideband sensors can be confirmed, as they are positioned in different locations than before. While Al finishes off the engine wiring loom, I crack on with a few miscellaneous jobs on the car, including fitting up the Go Fast Bits fuel pressure regulator and modifying the fuel lines to suit. A SPAL 16-inch thermofan is secured to the radiator using a bolt kit. Many kits come with plastic fasteners but tend to come loose and can cause more harm than good. The next job to tick off the list is to mount a transmission cooler underneath the car. This is secured to the floor using some nutserts, and Dave's existing cooler lines are long enough to be used without being modified.
I finished going over the wiring loom again. Had to sort of reroute everything and just change the location of a lot of stuff because we've changed from one big turbo out the front to two sort of right next to the engine. So a lot of stuff is in a different place. The coils have been moved. So we shortened all the coil wiring, re-terminated it, added a pair of widebands that weren't there before. Just changed the routing of some stuff because of where the heat is now, where it was or wasn't before. So and just sort of tried to tidy it up a bit. Got rid of the stuff that wasn't necessary. There was some wires taped up in it. I just usually pick out anything that isn't needed because it's just bulk and junk. Taped it back up again. A lot of people ask what sort of tape we use. It is cloth tape. So it's Tessa brand, but you can buy it in other brands, of course. And there's multiple grades of it. This is a sort of a softer one. There is a less malleable one that's sort of more heat proof. You normally just use this unless it's in a really nasty spot. And if it is in a really nasty spot and I need to sort of heat proof it, I normally go to like a Speedflow heat sheath or a reflective tape.
Hanging off the side of the bench there. That one.
That.
No, yeah, where the coolant temp sensor is.
Yeah, that's just a little shroud around the coolant temp sensor. That's heat proof sleeve as well. Normally found on an oxygen sensor that we probably stole. That was previously very susceptible just because of the location of the temp sensors on the LS heads. They're right next to one of the exhaust ports. So I normally give them a bit of a tape up. There's a lot of radiant heat in a setup like this, especially when they're being dyno tuned. You get red manifolds and stuff like that, and it will burn things within a sort of a radius if you don't take precautions. So we're ready to throw this back in. Woody's already sorted out all the plumbing and stuff. We've moved the fuel pressure regulator, replumbed all that. He's fitted a new transmission cooler underneath the car with a fan. We also have to wire that up just to ignition and tidied up all the other stuff. We've basically disassembled the whole bloody car again, so it looks like a giant mess. So we can do this. Manifold will then go on, plug everything in, then start loading stuff back on top of it. We're just waiting for some heat proofing gear for the manifolds and that sort of stuff, and then we'll be good to go. I think it's we're getting close, so that's good. Hard work. You end up getting there sooner or later.
Do you want me to go under the dash and you go the engine bay?
I'm easy.
Yeah, well,
I'll tell you where the hardest spotted. Do you want the easy or the hard?
I don't mind. I just like helping you out.
All right, you go inside then. Yeah, it's in the spot that's not easy to get at. You have to push that thing in from under there, from in there.
It's always funny. Your engine bay goes from looking really nice to
adding wiring.
Wiring and fuel lines and oil feeds and returns and everything.
Isn't that why people like carbies?
Can you say that again? Did you just say you like carbies?
No, certainly did not. Wash your mouth out.
How long did Dave's car last with a carby? And by Dave's car, I mean this car. Dave, this had a Turbo 308.
I'd had a carby off the internet that was the best. Guaranteed. You don't even have to tune them. That's what I like about carbies.
What's that?
Hang on. Can you just put in like a little sign that says sarcasm warning, just for people that don't pick up on it? That's what I like about carbies. You don't have to tune them. Sarcasm warning. Read. I think I might have shortchanged just a bit on this.
And the coil wiring.
I also think we might not be able to shut the bonnet, so it might work out all right.
Why not? Why can't you shut the bonnet?
Because of this. Might have to move them down a bit.
Oh, that's going to hit the coils.
Probably.
Why don't you just test it?
Because the bonnet won't shut anyway because it hits the turbo. Get hacky. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be an issue.
Wasn't this the world's...
It was the best bonnet for a VK in the world. That was what it was proclaimed by David. A big call, big call, big call.
David's full of big calls. So we've got fuel system done, wiring's done, all the plumbing's done. We've got brake fluid reservoir connected up to the master cylinder, which still needs to be...
Was it with a mint bracket?
With a mint bracket.
That even Bomb would be proud of.
Mm-hmm. What else is there to do, apart from refitting O-rings and everything back in the car?
Put everything on.
But there's nothing, like, that's relatively simple, apart from fighting with some O-rings and some clamps.
You know, we just got to put the ARP balancer on. So we've got...
ARP, SFI?
SFI, ARP, not ARP. What is it?
I don't know. It's expensive.
There's a fancy balancer, but it's got to have tolerance checked because they're not straight bolt-ons, people. Not straight bolt-ons. Read the instructions. You have to check your crank size and check your balancer internal size and hone. Otherwise you'll damage your crank because that probably will be too tight.
Speaking of damaging, I damaged some turbo beanies. There's two of them.
That's for this side. I heard a rumour that turbo beanies were really itchy on the inside. Is that a true rumour?
But here's when you cut them up and get them all over your hands, don't, dude? That's the worst. So we're not far off starting this then, are we?
Well, that's all relative, really, but yeah, not in theory. It's not too far. Got to find out where all this crap goes for a start.
Weren't you the guy that wired it?
I didn't do this bit. 1, 3.
The LS Harmonic balancer requires a puller so it can be removed. A special tool helps to install the new balancer onto the crankshaft without damaging any components. A new top dead center mark is made to match the new balancer, and the belt size is then measured using an old belt which we cut in half. One last job before starting the car is to make up some new ignition leads. These are available in DIY kits with many different plug-ins. It's an easy job to make these at home, so we've filmed a quick tech episode showing you how to do it.
We've got all our spark plug leads sorted. They're all on there ready to go. So now we've got to move on to the last stage, hopefully, before we fire it up, which is some heat management. So shielding things, stop it melting other things. We've got a big package from DCI products. If you've ever seen this sort of stuff on your XR6 Turbo or your Commodore, that's because DCI made it for Ford, and also some stuff for GM. They got a whole bunch of cool stuff. This is a like a universal starter motor heat shield kit, which on an LS is normally very much required, but because we've got our exhaust going out the inner guard, we don't need it. But that's a very good thing to add to something with extractors where it goes past the starter motor. You sort of bend it to shape, and it's got little clamps and stuff to set it up. Good thing. This stuff you can just basically beat it into whatever shape you like. That's what used to cover the exhaust manifolds on a XR6 Turbo. To cover the dump pipes, we're just going to use your generic heat wrap. We'll show you how to put that on in a second. There's a bit of a technique to it. We've also got plug lead boots. It's like a snake skin sort of stuff. There's also this stuff here that's just that stuff, but in a long length, so you can put it wherever you like. I'm sure we'll come have a use for that later. We've also got to cover up our master cylinder. That's probably the thing that's going to be most susceptible to heat. And for that, we're going to use this fiberglass with foil matting that's adhesive. Woody's sort of in the process of shaping that out. We're going to actually cover the entire master cylinder in that, as well as cover the dump pipe that's close to it. So that should do the job on that sort of stuff. So we'll get to that later. The hot sauce for putting on this heat wrap is to actually soak it in water. And it sort of makes it so it's very malleable and will pull into itself. If you don't do this and just wrap it on there, for a start it'll be difficult to fit on because it's very slippery, and it also, as soon as it gets hot, it'll just release and sort of unravel itself. So just got to soak it for a bit, makes a bit of a mess, wring it out for a bit. When you make a start with this stuff, you got to sort of wrap that end in like that, so there's no frays exposed. The frayed bits will tend to unravel the whole thing. It is just a sort of a weave of fabric. After you've got a little start on it, you get Woody or someone to put a zip tie around it and tighten it right up. You can also just use a hose clamp, I suppose.
Or CV clamps, I think.
A lot of people use CV band clamps for this sort of stuff, but if you do this right, you don't really need to clamp it. And CV band clamps tend to cut arms open. So not only do you get a burnt arm, you get your arm sliced open at the same time, which is not cool. You can probably tell by the level of grunting going on here that I'm actually putting quite a bit of effort into pulling this tight, and that's kind of the key to keeping it on there. It bites into itself pretty hard when it's wet, so you can get a decent wrap on it. To finish it off, we pretty much do the same thing as we did to start, do your little present wrap sort of thing, just to get that wrapped up inside. Pull it over. I just use normal hose clamps. You can use like CV band clamps, but yeah, they tend to cut people's wrists, so do it up. Wherever you put this, it won't be in the right place, so don't worry about it, just fix it when it's in the car. This isn't going to fall off, so you don't need to clamp it. I know people will clamp it because people like to do things the way they like to do it. So, ready to go back in, and then I'll spend the rest of the day scratching my arms.
It's like arse or arms?
Probably both. Here's the master cylinder. I've given it a good wrap. It's, had to cut open like passage holes for certain things. There's a little bit of work, but it's sort of it's not real tight around it, so it's still got a bit of air inside it to release any heat that might get in there. I reckon that'll do the job. Woody's been covering up the brake pipes where necessary. Pre-wrapping a piece of pipe that's slightly larger, which we then slide off and gives us a nice tube with a little bit of an air gap. Then that just pushes over the brake line. We haven't bled the brakes or anything yet, so there's no dramas there. We were sort of waiting because we knew we'd have to do this. So I reckon that'll do the job. Now we can put it all back together and move on to stuff that is more interesting, like engines running. All the heat proofing.
That's all the little nitty-gritty stuff done and dusted. Engine oil is in the car. We have checked for fuel leaks. There actually was a few injector O-rings leaking. They're replaced, that's done. The wastegate plumbing is done, but we're actually not happy with that either. That will get changed at a later date before it hits the dyno. Al's just got to jump in the car and configure some ECU stuff, and then we should be good to fire it up.
Just had to hook the laptop up and do a few little checks and changes. Got 2 widebands instead of 1, so we had to change that. Just had to check fuel pressure, which actually came out millhouse straight up, which is cool. And also we just reconfigured the drive-by-wire because we have welded the throttle body and I wanted to make sure everything was happy. So it's got a pretty good config process and checking process on the Elite. So that all came up well. Now we're just going to hook up a jump pack and crank her over, get some oil pressure and then get ready to start it.
What happened to your eye?
I think I got some schmutz in it.
You got pink eye.
What's that?
Something off South Park, I don't know.
Maybe I do. It's bloody annoying.
PPE, huh?
Just going to crank for some oil pressure, so I've switched the injectors off.
Man, that fuel pump's so noisy, eh?
It is very noisy. Just going to get up the diag screen so we can see everything, trigger states and fuel pressure and all that sort of stuff, oil pressure, and crank it and see what happens. Got oil pressure now, we've got to switch the injectors back on and see if it'll fire up. Things aren't exactly going to plan. It's not starting. It's doesn't sound like it's getting any fuel. We just tested in an injector just to see if it'd click because it's been sitting around for ages with ethanol in it and none of them seem to do anything. So out they come and we'll see if we can revive them. We were planning on getting them cleaned by the Hoff when he was tuning it. They're pretty easy to get out, but we kind of need to get it to start first. So we might give them a bit of a massage and see if we can get them going ourselves. We've got a bit of a power outage at the moment, so we're Doing it in the dark end with battery stuff.
So tell them what we do, Owen.
So contacting this you should hear the injector click. It's just a solenoid, so you can see that there's current going through because of the sparks there. And
this is just earthed out to the
no clicky.
desk, by the way.
So
No good?
not yet.
Which one was fixed? Fixed already? This one?
Yep.
We already fixed one of them and it worked.
So this one came good with a little tap, which is what you want. One of them, the last one, didn't, and I would not use it again. We'd probably like shelve a lot of them and just get new ones because there's too much money in this thing. These things are kind of renowned for that. These 2200 short things, just not surviving, sitting around with ethanol in them. So we got this one working anyway. So all I do is put a bit of Subaru Seafoam crap down the middle of them and blow into them. Good to go.
The joys of being a mechanic.
I've done this at a bloody racetrack.
Whose car?
One of Timmy's circuit racing mates. Wasn't. This one does work.
You see the stuff that came out of it when you blew through it?
Yeah. So all but two of them were completely seized and we were only able to revive 4 of them. As I said, we would not leave these in there unless we wanted to kill the engine. We just want to start it. We'll probably order a set.
We had some laying around, which is why we've...
Had 6 spare ones from one of Woody's projects, so...
Thanks, Kenny.
We've grabbed 4 of those.
So Kenny's old injectors.
Out of about 17 cars ago, yeah. Yeah, it was pretty obvious that it wasn't going to go. We had some issues. For a start, the injectors were all stuck, so we attempted to unstick them and they ended up being buggered. It's been sitting for a little while. Ethanol can do that, especially with 2200s. They're renowned for it. We got a new set of them from Golby, chucked them in, still wouldn't go. Got no compression. So it turns out the push rods were too long and holding the valves open, which is Dave's fault. This is Dave, by the way. However, it was running when it came here, so it's kind of, we're going to let him off on this one. Yeah, it must have been just we've changed a few little things and it must have been enough just to push it over the edge. So got on to a couple of mates, Ian, Marv, Mark, and ended up getting the correct push rods through Troy at War Speed. He helped us out, got them to us real quick, threw them in, and voila, we have compression. So we've already fired it up and bled the cooling system and everything, so it does go. No internet magic here. So we're going to get ready to fire it up in front of the camera now, and Dave's going to hit the 2-step and get flames and stuff going everywhere, which will be sick.
Oh yeah. Can't wait.
Woody suggested I warn people off getting on the bandwagon of picking on Dave. Dave did build this car himself in his suburban garage. He's not a mechanic, but he's it's his car and he's done a real good job on it. So we're allowed to give him shit because he's our mate and he melts all our hole saws. But that doesn't mean you can. So tone it down in the comments department, please. Anyway, let's fire it up, Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
This is a bit like Christmas, David, hey?
Absolutely. I can't wait to drive it again. But I'm just happy to see some flames out the side.
Yeah. Are you going to fix up these more? There's too many holes than what it needs.
Nah, just leave them.
Are you going to leave them?
Yeah, just leave them. It's character.
So comfy to get into.
How good's that interior?
Getting rid of it.
Speedboat effect. Just
What did it pop off?
How is that?
What did it pop off?
did something pop.
What are you talking about?
I didn't hear anything.
Nothing can pop off, bro.
Nah.
Now my eyes are stinging because of the ethanol in his confined workspace.
Works.
It does work.
Sweet. Stoked.
How good does that sound?
Yeah, love it. It was loud before, but with the twin turbos, it's even louder with the
I think
GT35s.
it actually is loud. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's not quite supercharged big block loud, but it's loud. Did it shoot flames?
No, I didn't shoot any flames. Can you do it again? Don't want to ruin those audio ears.
I think we're done with Muzz. It's off to the Hoffs now to get a tune. Hopefully it'll make some good numbers and stay together. A couple of shout outs for help that we've got along the way. Kirsten at Golby's for supplying the turbos, injectors, a few other bits and pieces. GFB, awesome wastegates, blow-off valve and fuel pressure regulator. What else we got in there?
Health Tech, coils, ECU.
IGN 1As for the epic spark that is required for an engine like this. And Dave also wanted to thank a couple of his mates that have helped along the way. Jez, Gleno and Dunning-Kruger who also rolled around in Dave's suburban garage and helped him build the car along the way. It wasn't just Woody and I that helped, it was a few other people as well. So thanks to those guys.
And John for doing the manifolds. Oh, what was his name?
Oh, and Chris, yeah. Chris did an awesome job on those manifolds. So stoked with the way he designed them and cut them out and everything. It's really cool. I'd like to see more of that.
A few people said that he needs to quit his day job.
Yeah, probably. But then he probably gets paid well in his day job because he's clearly a smart dude. So making manifolds is probably not the most advanced trade. Probably shouldn't have said that. That's a bit rude, isn't it?
Nah, logs don't work, bro.
No. All good. Let's load her up and take it to the Hoffs and then hopefully to the track afterwards.
Test and tune.
See what we can do with it.
Hell yeah.
Pretty keen.
Maybe you can come to this one instead of going line dancing.
Oh, it depends on whether it's the state championships are on. It's no brainer. I'm not going drag racing when there's line dancing to be won.
That's true.
Have you seen Billy Ray Cyrus is going to be there?
Do you get a plastic trophy or a glass trophy this time?
It's like a leather trophy.
Oh yeah.
You know, like a cowboy hat. That's all we got. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next ep. You like that? You gotta film me all the time, bro. This is leisure time, not bloody filming time.
It's alright, I wasn't filming the hard part.
The swearing at the hitting off the tyre.
I think that's because we're rookies.
Yeah, well,
Oh no, I am.
you don't have to replace them that much, so I can't remember how to do it.
True that. How good's the old two banger?
Oh yeah. I'd much rather ride them than work on them.
Yeah, that's true. Hey Alan, I've got a question for you. What happened to your face?
I followed Timmy down a track and got, I don't know, some very aggressive plant with big spikes on it dragged across my eyeballs.
Okay, a second question. Why is that turbo so tiny?
Because small engines require small turbos.
True that.